So recently, I know it's got like a lot of background noise right now. I just have to get this off my mind at this very moment. So I'm in the car. But recently I've had on my mind kind of the subject of those people that rely on others for everything. And the thing that keeps coming up is that sometimes these people wait for that lucky break or for something to actually work out. And the hard part about that is, one, when you're just sitting there waiting for something to work out in your favor and you get impatient, the hardest part about that is that waiting part and dealing with that impatience. Because if you're just sitting off on the side and watching and waiting and nothing's working your way, there's a reason for that. And the hardest part is learning to deal with why everything seems to be failing. So one part of this when it comes to waiting is that, like I mentioned already, aspect of waiting on others and relying on others to do like everything to make that happen. The hardest part with relying on others is you are literally at the mercy and whim of their schedules, their lives, and their priorities. So one thing that I deal with at home is sometimes we have stuff on this nice little plot of land that needs to get done. And we just don't have the tools to do it. We don't have a tractor. We don't have like big industrial spray equipment. So for something like tilling up a whole like 12 acres or a 7-acre space, we need to ask someone else to do it. And the hard part is what we've run into before is some people don't want to do it because even though we'd pay them, they don't want to get the weeds that we have in their equipment. And that's a concern that they have. The problem that we've had is basically the only equipment that we have to spray with is a small backpack kit. So that's a slow, long process. And people want some things right now, which we cannot always accommodate. And so we have to rely on the schedules of others, the mercy and goodwill of others, in order to get that done. In spite of being willing to pay, sometimes these people that would help us have a queue. And like I mentioned about priorities, they don't want to get noxious weeds in their equipment. And that's what they're worried about. So we don't get stuff done because like half to 90% of the people don't want to deal with that. And so you add, we can't get into their schedules, and they don't want the weeds and their other priorities. Maybe they have like family that maybe they've got family that they borrow fields from and they do other things so that they can continue to use those fields and be on good graces with family. And that makes sense. That's one of the priority things as well that can get in the way. But just like in that situation, if you rely on others, you're basically at the same whim and will of what their priorities are, what their schedules look like, and even what emergencies come up in their lives. And that is sometimes hard to deal with when you're waiting on things to work out for you and you're relying on other people to make that happen. Then that thing may not even happen until a decade down the road. They're just some things that if you just keep on waiting, they may never even happen because of the little bit of action that you have taken yourself. And part of that kind of goes into the reason why some people may rely on others is because they believe they just can't do it. There are just things that they don't see that they can do. Maybe it's the fact that they would go back and say they're sorry, but the person they want to say sorry to has basically blocked them out of their life in some form or fashion. They've cut those bridges, burned those bridges in essence. The person on the other end of it. And so you might believe that you can't do it because they burnt those bridges, and that's out of your control. And that's the hard part. But there may be some other people in the way that you have that haven't quite burned their bridges that maybe you can still apologize to. And the hard part about that is, yes, it's not always your fault. You don't realize what's going on, and they don't always realize what's going on either. But it comes down to, are you willing to be the bigger person and say sorry, even if you did nothing wrong? See, there's an old story of, it illustrates it really quite well. There's an old story of a man with his father in the car. They're kind of riding down the road, and this man is like getting ready. He's found a wonderful woman. He's basically tells his dad, "Hey Dad, I really love this woman and I think I want to marry her." And his dad just turns to him and goes, "Son, say you're sorry." And the son's like, "But I haven't done anything." "What? Why?" "Son, say you're sorry." "Dad, what have I done that I need to say sorry for?" "Son, just say you're sorry." "But Dad, what have I done?" "Son, say you're sorry." "Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry." And then the dad goes, "I think you're ready for marriage. You just remember that. That's what marriage will be like. You won't always know what you did wrong. You may have not even done something wrong. But when she's mad, it's best to say you're sorry and move on with life." And there are plenty of redneck comedians that kind of illustrate the same thing. That sometimes they don't even know what they did, and sometimes it's in their wife's dream that they did something and they get in trouble for it. And so that's the point where it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what I did, whether you dreamt it. I didn't even do anything in my dreams that I thought was wrong. And then the wife tells him what he did wrong in her dream, and he's like, "Can we switch dreams, please? Really? I would actually like to get punished for something I knew I did, rather than something I didn't know I did until you tell me later on and after I've said I'm sorry and you've hit me a couple times." But that's part of the issue, is it runs into what can you reasonably do? What you look at every obstacle in your way, and it's like, okay, and you start to believe more in the obstacles in your way, and you see only those obstacles rather than the other possibilities that you can work around. I mean, there are plenty of people that have had various different problems, like mental conditions and so on, that have been able to overcome them in various ways, whether it be through the support of friends, whether it be through a support animal, that they've been able to overcome problems in their life and been able to learn to deal with it so that they can go on and live life and live more like someone that doesn't deal with it. And it's because of those support networks that they're able to rely on, talk to, find comfort in, that they can actually do those things, like even the scary things like apologizing or going to people that make them feel uncomfortable and doing things that they don't feel quite comfortable doing. And they're able to overcome those. I mean, to take, like, you could have so I know someone that was diagnosed with dyslexia, and so most anybody that anybody would have the excuse, like, I can't read, I'm dyslexic. In fact, I know multiple people that, like, dyslexia, and they still are able to read, and some of them become avid readers. I mean, I know one in particular, he loves reading, and he was dyslexic. My own brother was dyslexic, and he read a lot of books. He overcame that. I had a church leader that is dyslexic, but he still, I mean, yeah, you might slip up here and there, but you still, like, work through it, and you don't let it stop you from, like, they didn't let it stop them. In fact, they found love in the very thing that, most people would use an excuse for holding them back. And that's the thing, where sometimes you just have to bore right through your obstacles that you have. At other times, you can find support networks to help you walk through those. It just depends from situation to situation. And I know that's one thing that sometimes I run into situations like that, where it's like the one thing I focus on is trying more so to help people see that they can overcome it when they bring stuff up like that to me. And it's hard because sometimes it's a long process. And so you have to work one layer at a time. And this applies from someone that's, like, attacking these problems as well, is you just have to work it out one layer at a time, slowly. And yeah, sometimes it'll just take longer than you want it to. But it's by finding those points where you have the positive control and where you can do something, and they're always there. There are always things that you can do, especially when it is something that is between you directly and another party. You don't have to go through a third party. You can do it. It's just finding the obstacles and sometimes relying on that support network to help you bring those walls down and to help you overcome your personal obstacles in order to, push you up over them, maybe sometimes, in order to make things happen the way you want them to. That way you can have those things working out for you the way you want it to. And yes, hiccups happen in the process. Your support network will have other things that they are working on. But again, that's where the patience comes in. And sometimes it may be slow, but you can always find ways to prepare yourself for doing those things that are uncomfortable and finding other ways to cope as well. And I know a lot of people, they give these things out and say, okay, he's got it. I don't have to do anything else. There are just sometimes some things where you have to prepare for, like, things to not quite work out in your favor when you are working with other people. And that's the tough part, is like, there are a lot of people that you can rely on, you can, and sometimes those people, maybe they take a bit longer or something comes up, and it's like, I'm sorry, this came up, I've got these other things going on, I am so sorry. And that's where you show them that mercy, where it's like, okay. And when they can't always give you things that you want, you have to find ways that you can make your situation better. And yes, sometimes, again, that means entering into places that you may not feel comfortable going into for, like, maybe you have a personal reason, and then as you analyze what that personal reason is, you would realize that, okay, maybe this personal reason is less important than what I want to accomplish in this situation. Maybe this personal reason for me avoiding this is keeping me from making my situation better. So maybe you need a friend that can, like, be there for you for when you walk into that uncomfortable situation, so that you can be better prepared for when things may not turn out well for you, or when things really do get uncomfortable and you have to walk away for a second, so that you can work it out and then come back. So one example of this is in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. There was a point when Kyle was on the stand and he was, like, recounting his experience. And he basically cracked up. You could see him, like, trying to hold it together. He had a panic attack there on the stand. And the judge basically gave him some time to kind of, like, work it out. And then after that, he was just fine. Once he was able, he had a group of people that were able to help him work it out so that he could continue cross-examination. And that's, like, a severe example, I think, of a personal problem, to where, yeah, sometimes you have to step back and then get your support network in order to help you, and then go back and face it again. Because you notice that he was able to hold himself together after he was able to take a breather and work that stuff out, and then he went just fine after that. And that's the thing, is, yes, it's going to be slow, but if you take that breather, you come back when things get to be too much. When you take a breather after things get to be too much, and then you come back, hopefully you're better prepared for what will happen. And that's where, the support network comes in, is to help you prepare for that moment when it may happen again and you have to go through that again. And hopefully you're better composed for it when it does happen again. It's one reason, like, I've run into a number of situations throughout my life where sometimes the first time I come across something, it's like, but then after I'm able to prepare, when it comes up again, and I've had moments where it does come up again, I am much more better prepared for when those types of situations happen. And I feel more confident because not only have I been through it before, but I have prepared myself much more so that I am much more ready for when I run into that kind of a thing again. And sometimes that's the tough part, is you have to, like, face those things that make you uncomfortable, that may, like, tear you down sometimes. But then once you face it the first time, you prepare And then sometimes the next time, you're not always as prepared as you thought you were for it. But then you're able to become stronger from it the next time. Because you're able to fill in those areas where you lacked that preparation. I think that's kind of the big part at this point. If this long rant, as long as it was, is remotely helpful, has done any good, if you think, even if you think I'm completely wrong and out of my mind, do let me know, because everybody is in a different situation. But I think sometimes we let those situations get to our head. And so sometimes it takes a little bit more creativity to figure out the situation, then get out of it. So I've got a Discord. All the chat links are in the description to so you can talk things out back and forth for real. And maybe it would help someone that because this, like I said, this has been something that's been kind of really hard on my mind recently. So, yeah. Have a good one.